Hi there. I hope you're well. Now, before we dive into the syllabus, let us do a snappy review. Our module thesis, as you can see on the slide, is this. Faith is an episteme, a mode of knowledge that allows people to do theology, which means that faith guides human beings whenever we think of or write about God's relationship to humanity and creation. In this video in particular, we're going to go through most of the syllabus together. I'm not going to break it down as much because we're going through all the key parts. First up, aside from graduate students calling me by my first name, which is a thing for me, I have one other long-standing rule in any class where I teach. You folks are allowed to ask me, or my substitute, relevant questions at any time. If you do not understand the material, please write to me or place a comment on the video or on a message board or whatever so that I can change course and delve deeper with you into the mysteries of the course material. As I say, please write to me if you have questions, else I will think you understand everything I say. Let's go through portions of the syllabus together. First off, the course overview. This course, Introduction to Christian Theology, THEO 5110, here at North Park Theological Seminary, introduces students to the doctrines, methods, and tasks of Christian theology. It seeks the active appropriation of Christian faith, both in the context of the church and in engagement with the world. That means this. We talk about what theology is and how we do it here in this course, and then as we reflect and act in the world, we perform portions of our theology separately and together. Moreover, the lesson objectives for the course. The big ideas that you will learn are as follows. There are 4 of them. By virtue of this course, students will A, learn to identify and describe basic Christian doctrines and significant theologians in terms of their historical contexts and or their contributions to the Christian theological tradition. So, as you're likely aware, a doctrine is a belief or set of beliefs, and theologians are those who reflect on, expound, and ideally embody the doctrines that govern theology, the study of God. For instance, Thomas Aquinas and Martin Luther, about whom we're supposed to talk in the rest of this module. In particular, Luther, one of the magisterial 16th century reformers, said a lot of things about faith, which is a singular theological concept for Christians. So we're going to talk about some of what Luther asserted in the next video in this module. Big idea 2 for this course. Students will articulate important theological themes, concepts, and vocabulary based on lectures and reading material. Broken down, this means, in this class, I will teach you words and concepts based on the lectures and the reading, and I want you to remember them and use them not only in your conversation with your classmates, but if possible, in your everyday life as well. Third learning object for the course. Students will argue a theological position based on your analyses of course materials. So basically, once you can use the vocabulary for this course and other courses in this field, you can use those concepts to critically examine other people's statements about theological principles and practices. And in any course that I teach, it would be best if your arguments centered on your lived experience paired with your engagement with the text. I say that because your lived experience, paired with the text, demonstrates the ways that you've appropriated the faith-seeking understanding that sits at the heart of theology. That part in quotation marks was from Anselm of Canterbury. Onwards. Fourth big idea for the course. Students will defend a theological argument in academic writing by engaging with, evaluating, and integrating various theological texts on a chosen theme. So basically, this objective follows from the last one insofar as any arguments you make allow you to make cogent statements of your own concerning themes like sin, revelation, Christology, eschatology, you name it. The integrative papers on eschatology at the end of this course will allow you folks to examine 3 or more views of the last days, or the end times, and to form your own coherent opinions. We will be talking about that at great length. Next up, we want to talk about some of the readings. There are 3 sources of reading material for this class. The first, as I hope you can see on the slide, is the Bible, also called the Holy Scriptures, the Word of God, and other names. While we are in a theology class, rather than a strictly biblical one, the book that you can see on the slide is one of our primary source texts. And if you write me papers that make no reference to Scripture, you will very likely be docked grades unless you are a master rhetorician. Second kind of reading is textbooks that you will buy and read on your own. There are 3 texts that I want you folks to buy in hard copy. The first is Don Frisk's Covenant Affirmations, a touchstone text for covenant ministers who want to learn more about this tradition's views on specific doctrines, such as faith, which is today's topic, or Christology, or the last days, or whatever. I use the 1981 version of Frisk's text, and you can, if you choose, use the 2003 version, which is available to you through a website you'll find in the syllabus. The second book is Reggie Williams Bonhoeffer's Black Jesus. It concerns the ways in which the Harlem Renaissance, a pivotal historical moment for African Americans, influenced and reshaped Dietrich Bonhoeffer's theology as he both spent a year in a black church in Harlem and then interacted with the Nazis' racist politics and practices. Our third hard copy text is Tom Wright's Surprised by Hope, an engaging and surprisingly entertaining read about Wright's take on the last days. And that's only about half the reading we'll be doing, because the other half exists on Canvas, and in the case of Augustine, the wider reaches of the vast internet. What's Canvas, I hear you ask? It's North Park's learning management system, an online mode of existence where this course is technically taking place right now. In the course modules, units or weeks on Canvas, you will find many readings, including, as you can see, 90 pages from Karl Barth's Church Dogmatics, 1 chapter from Brian Gerish's Saving and Secular Faith, 2 chapters apiece from Jenny Weissblock's Copious Hosting, a book on theologies of disability, and James Cone's God of the Oppressed, which is a marvelous text on Black liberation theology. 1 chapter from South African-Canadian theologian Charles Fensham on missiology, I'll explain what that is, and 1 by Asasi Diaz, at which we're about to glance. Plus, you'll find 1 chapter by Asian American feminist theologian Kwok Pui Lan on Christology, 1 by George Tinker, a Lakota Native American theologian and activist, on eschatology, 1 chapter by Croatian theologian Miroslav Volf concerning forgiveness, and 2 by John C. Weborg, formerly a professor at the seminary, on the sacraments of baptism and Holy Communion. All those online readings will buttress your growing skills with theological interpretation. Some of them may make you feel uncomfortable. All of them are worth reading. I've asked you to find a suitable translation of Augustine's On Christian Doctrine on your own, and I've found my own translation for the next module. I hope that that's not a hardship for you, and if finding a translation of Augustine is difficult, please write or talk to me. Next, we talk about the assignments, or assessments, for this class. Let's begin with the reflection papers, since you have one immediately coming up. Twice across the course of the term, I will ask you to write me reflection papers, which are 5% each. In general, these papers are to be no more than 2 pages long, so like 500, 600 words, depending on the depth of the topic. I would like you, in these papers, to both engage as fully as possible with the primary author's claims in about 250 words or less, and then to add your own experience or reflection to the author's arguments. So, again, up to 250 words. You can, as necessary, bring in other sources, but citations are not necessary because these are reflective rather than argumentative essays. Again, each one is worth 5%. In a similar vein, 3 times throughout the term, I will ask you to write me précis assignments. A précis is a summary. It's a brief paraphrase of a piece of information. So these papers are not reflective or argumentative, but summative or descriptive. I want you to write me up to like 500 words that make clear what the primary source is saying in the chapter or article in question, and if possible, why she or he is saying it. These are not complicated assignments. Again, they're worth 5%. And as you're only engaging a single source in each case, you do not need to provide citations beyond the parenthetical. And bringing us back in a wide arc, 7 times across the breadth of the course, I would like you to post 300 to 500 words on our Canvas discussion boards on set topics. After you have posted, then please engage with your classmates, one in particular, in reply to their post using about 100 words. Here, please draw on course readings with parenthetical citations as necessary, and when you are talking to your classmates on email, please be collegial. It's okay to disagree. Please make your disagreements on the discussion boards substantive and as often as possible based on the texts that you're discussing. Ad hominem attacks, like name-calling, slurs, any attacks of a personal nature, will be marked down. The biggest assignments, weighted at 30% of your course grade, are the integrative papers. More explicitly, at a specific point when we're talking about eschatology, that is the last 4 or 5 weeks of the course, I would have you write me essays. These essays are meant to be between 2,000 and 2,500 words long, that is 10 to 12 pages, if possible no longer. They must come to me as a first draft worth 10%, and then as a final draft worth the remaining 20. Moreover, they must contain a thesis statement, a clear introduction, a body of the essay, and a decisive endpoint. They must also engage with 2 or 3 sources, including the primary source you're investigating in the question, which I will set. And they absolutely must cite their sources. That last part is not negotiable. Similarly, like your other written work, these essays ought to be civil or collegial in tone, which means that when you're reading and interpreting the texts you've had assigned to you, you are to treat your subjects with charity even when you disagree with them. Outside research beyond the scope of the course is unnecessary, but is always welcome. If you'd like to do that, please do write to me. And after all that, in week 3, so coming up quite soon, you will have a 10-point multiple choice quiz concerning your lecture materials on the Council of Chalcedon. I hope that assignment won't be too hard on you folks because it's basically a reading log to check whether or not you've watched the lecture video for that week. More generally, assignments submitted on time, and those 2 words on time are really important, will receive a grade within a week of their submission. That grade will be accompanied by feedback, and the depth of that feedback will be based on the weight of the assignment. Similarly, discussion posts and responses will be monitored, read, and graded within a day or so of their regular submission. I will let you read the grading policy on your own because those numbers bore me. However, in terms of late work, students at this university are expected to hand in assignments by the due dates written in their syllabi. So this means when an assignment is late, it receives a loss of 1/3 of a letter grade every day. So an A assignment becomes A minus becomes B plus becomes B, and so on. This penalty is not applied to students who have compassionate or medical difficulties, and students facing such adversity are kindly requested to consult with their faculty advisor and/or with the dean of faculty, who will in turn speak to me, your instructor. The absolute deadline for the course is the examination day scheduled for the course. Since there's no final exam, the last day for courses is the last day on which I will grade papers. Please note this course's late policy. Approval for an assignment extension must be obtained at least 48 hours. That's 2 full days, folks, before that assignment is due. Else, as before, papers will be marked down by 1/3 of a letter grade per day. Extensions are granted only in emergency situations, and computer or device issues do not constitute an emergency. All papers are to be submitted electronically, on Canvas, or directly to the professor by email on the day that they are due. Papers must be sent as a doc or docx file, preferably from a North Park email address, because any other address is insecure. Absolutely not as PDF or RTF files. Please use Word insofar as you can. Papers should contain numbered pages and be double-spaced. Furthermore, let's talk for just a sec about class conduct. You can see the hearts with the hands on the slide there. This class is really only going to work if we can engage in open dialogue with each other. That assertion is particularly true because this is an internet-based and asynchronous course. In light of the significance of civil and collegial discourse, please employ charity when you dialogue with those who hold differing views from you. This means when you read someone's response to a post that you've made on a discussion board, or when you read my comments on another of your papers, strive to actually read the comments you see. Then engage charitably with the ideas, strive to understand your colleagues' reasoning, and do your level best to keep the conversation mutual, particularly in your discussion posts, mostly by engaging with the ideas rather than the people who promote them. I also want to state that as the professor, I will delete any post that uses or glorifies hate speech and will mark down any assignment that contains that particular form of vitriol. And because charity and honesty can be interrelated, and usually are, please do not plagiarize the works of others. If you don't know what that means, let me tell you. Plagiarism is passing off someone else's intellectual work as your own without attribution. If you begin a paper with a long quotation from Karl Barth, pictured on the slide, and don't tell me that you're quoting Barth's ideas, your grade will almost surely suffer, not only because I have a rough idea of how Barth writes, but because you need to cite your sources in order to make credible arguments in this field. All of this is contained in the seminary's policy on academic honesty in the syllabus proper, and all this is outlined at greater length in the seminary's academic catalog. In light of all that, I look forward to papers that are both substantive and error-free. Lastly, please study the sections of the syllabus on accessibility or accommodation and sexual harassment with care. I am one of the accessibility advocates for this seminary, and that means if you need access to a resource that we're using and can't find it, write to me or talk to me. I'm not only obliged to help you, but I'm happy to help you because I want to give you what you need to succeed. And the same thing is somewhat true of sexual harassment. If, in this class, you find that you are experiencing unwanted attentions of a sexual nature, please tell me. I am obligated to talk to the Title IX coordinator of the university about those matters in confidence so that we can help you. That should conclude our snappy review of the syllabus. Next up, in video 1C, the third video in this module, we will discuss the first chapter of Brian Gerish's Saving in Secular Faith, as well as the first chapter of Don Frist's Covenant Affirmations, This We Believe, and then we will connect those ideas briefly to Asasi Diaz's concept of an episteme. When you are ready, please go on to video 1C.